I want to tell you about Tony and Crystal because their story, it didn't start soft. It started intense. Tony was the kind of man who didn't say much. He watched. He thought before he spoke. Everything about him was controlled. His tone, his presence, his energy. If it didn't make sense, he didn't deal with it. And then there was Crystal. Crystal felt everything. She didn't hold back her laughter, didn't hide her emotions. She lived in the moment. And if she felt something, you were going to know it. And when they met, it wasn't smooth. It was friction. I remember the first time they locked eyes. Crystal smiled, just naturally. Tony didn't. He just looked at her for a second, longer than normal. And she said, half laughing, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And he replied, calm as ever, "Because you don't move like everybody else." Right there, something shifted. Tony didn't understand her. "How do you just go with things like that?" he asked her once. "You don't plan nothing out?" And Crystal looked at him and said, "Why does everything have to be planned to be real?" That hit him, but he didn't say it. And Crystal, she didn't understand him either. One night she looked at him and said, "You don't say much, but I feel like there's a lot you're not saying." Tony paused, looked away for a second, then said, "I just don't speak on things unless I mean it." That hit her. See, at first, their differences were interesting. It felt new, different, but then it got real. There were moments where Crystal felt like, "I'm giving you all of me, and I don't know what I'm getting back." And Tony would respond steady but firm, "You're getting consistency. I'm here, aren't I?" And she'd shake her head and say, "Sometimes being here isn't the same as being open." That right there, that was one of those moments, the kind where everything goes quiet, not peaceful quiet. That kind of quiet where both people are thinking, maybe this isn't going to work. And Tony felt it too. There was a moment he said to her, "You feel everything so deeply. It's like there's no off switch." And she looked at him, hurt but honest, and said, "And you feel so little. It's like you turned yours off a long time ago." That sat with him. They both had a choice in those moments. Walk away or lean in, and they leaned in. Tony started listening differently, not to fix it, not to control it, but to understand it. And one day he told her, I used to think you were too much, but I think I just wasn't used to someone being that real." Crystal softened when he said that, and she started shifting too. Instead of reacting right away, she started pausing, breathing, choosing her words. And one day she told him, "I used to think you didn't feel anything, but I think you just feel things in a way you don't always show." And that's when it changed. Not because they became the same, but because they started seeing each other clearly. Tony began to open up, not all at once, but enough. Enough for her to feel him. Crystal began to ground herself, not losing who she was, but giving him space to meet her halfway. And slowly, that friction turned into balance. Tony gave her stability. Crystal gave him warmth. And together, they created something neither one of them could have created alone. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments, still conversations, still pauses. But now, those moments didn't break them. They built them. Because real love, it's not about finding someone just like you. It's about finding someone who challenges you, who stretches you, who makes you look at yourself and decide to grow. And one night, Crystal looked at Tony and said softly, "You know we're nothing alike, right?" And Tony smiled, just a little, and said, "Yeah, but I wouldn't want it any other way." And that's when you knew. They weren't opposites anymore. They were balanced. And that is the story of when Tony met Crystal.